Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about how Barcelona did tie against Alaves. Now the first thing that I do want to say is this, right? There is still some positive points that we could take out from this game. Even though it was a very frustrating tie, again, there is still some very positive points. Because we have to remember, in the previous season, every time we did have a result similar to this, the players that we have always pointed to was players like Ivan Rakitic, Luis Suarez, Arturo Vidal, and in the end, we were unable to change the outcome of how Barcelona should perform in this season because those were the only players that we had. Like, that was it. If Barcelona performed bad or we tied, that is about it. We had no second plan. But in the last game against Alaves, we actually had a different solution. We were not stuck with some veteran players. We had other players backed up in our roster in order to change the game. And those solutions did involve the youth. And so from a micro standpoint, right, seeing this in a short-term point of view, it does raise a lot of concerns. But from a macro point of view, right, seeing this on a bigger scale, there are some great things happening within FC Barcelona. There are new players being birthed within this club like Ansu Fati, Pedri, Trincao, Serginho Dest, De Jong, many other players. There is a new emerging FC Barcelona, and so I'm always going to continue and push this message because this is a time where the fans and the Barcelona players do need to hear something like this. We need to continue to look forward, try to improve, and just overall have a better way of looking at things. So the way that I am going to organize this video is that I am going to be talking about the first half and then the second half. The reason why I do want to split these like I did in my previous video is because the first half and the second half, they were two completely different FC Barcelonas. In the first half, that is where the majority of the problems did show. So here's what did happen in the first half. Barcelona had all of the possession, but Barcelona were not effective with the possession that Barcelona did have. They were just not penetrating Alaves enough, and because of that, we did pay the price within the first half. But here's the crazy thing about the performance of Barcelona. In the first half, looking at the stats here, it shows that Alaves did have more counterattacks than FC Barcelona, and that is so not acceptable when it does come to a club like Barcelona. Because look, is Barcelona a counterattacking team? They're not. But when you're facing a team like Alaves, a team that does not see the Europa League or the Champions League, and you compare that to a legendary club like Barcelona, you are expected to have at least more counterattacks than the opposition, with players like De Jong, who loves to have the ball and advance forward, and then have other players like Ansu Fati or Dembele. You are expected to have more counterattacks than the opposition. This team was built to be in that way. And as we continue to look at these pictures, one point that we have to notice is this: 3 of the 6 counterattacks that Alaves have made in the first half were coming through the middle. Now this is where it gets very interesting, right? Because now the question is, why was Alaves focusing so much through the middle? And it is simply because of this. Alaves did do their homework, and they knew that Busquets off the ball work was absolutely horrible. They knew that Busquets is not that type of player that is going to be a box-to-box type of midfielder. While Busquets is good on the ball, when it does come to the defensive work and defending your space, Busquets is just not capable to do that. And Alaves did see that. They said, wait a minute, Busquets defensively is not the best. If we were to run through him, knowing that he does leave a lot of space behind him, that is exactly where we should go. And that, my friends, is why Alaves did find those chances in the first half. That is why Alaves did hurt us very early. And that is also why we did see Antoine Griezmann sit very deep in this game. Because many people were questioning throughout the media and asking, why is Griezmann sitting so deep? Why is he acting like a central defensive midfielder? Well, that is because Antoine Griezmann had to occupy the space of Busquets. If we look at the average position here, right, I'm going to show you 2 pictures. It is going to be the first half and the second half. The second half is going to be on your right, and the first half is going to be on your left. Notice how on the first half, Antoine Griezmann is right next to Busquets. And then notice in the second half, when Barcelona began to be more advanced and they start to attack, we still saw Antoine Griezmann just be right in front of Busquets. But overall, Antoine Griezmann was that player that was occupying the space of Sergio Busquets. Again, what was the reason? And that was that Antoine Griezmann had to do the defensive work that Busquets could not do on the field. And this has been happening for a very long time. If we do go all the way back into the game between Getafe and FC Barcelona, you can see almost the exact same thing. Antoine Griezmann is just right in front of Sergio Busquets, or right next to Sergio Busquets. And Koeman knew exactly what he was doing in this game against Alaves. He knew that Busquets was not capable enough to to bring in those defensive qualities, which is why he says, look, I know that I'm going to place you as a number 9, but I'm going to need you to drop back all the way down and cover for Busquets. But let me tell you, Antoine Griezmann did a great job doing what he had to do. Even though we know that Griezmann is not a central defensive midfielder, Griezmann still performed in the way that Koeman wanted him to perform. If we look at the defensive duos in the first half, Antoine Griezmann was actually the player that received the most amount of successful defensive duels in the first half, beating other players like Gerard Piqué, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Lenglet, and Ansu Fati. As a matter of fact, Antoine Griezmann beat Piqué by a mile. Griezmann had 3 more successful defensive duos in that first half. And so when it does come to Griezmann being assigned this role, Antoine Griezmann did an amazing job, and I do applaud him for bringing that type of work ethic on the field. But there is a cause and effect on this whole thing, and that was that this also did affect Griezmann's performance as a creator in this game. Why? It was because Griezmann did struggle on trying to be a creator and trying to cover for Busquets' lack of defensive work. He was taking on 2 different roles. And so I do think that there is a massive lesson to learn from this half, and that is that Busquets' role does need to be dropped. The fact that we need to have a player like Antoine Griezmann, who we know that can assist and score inside the box, and just have that player do some defensive work in the middle of the pitch is so unacceptable. We have to maximize a quality player like Antoine Griezmann and drop a player like Sergio Busquets and bring in a central defensive midfielder that knows how to bring in some defensive qualities on the pitch. But that is basically why we did struggle in the first half. And so Koeman did need a response. He did need to find a solution to this, because if we were to continue to do this, we were not going to get anywhere. Barcelona were going to continue to minimize their chances when they know that they can up their chances and potentially score more goals. And we did see this in the second half, right? We are going to move towards the second half, and that was that Koeman made 3 substitutions. That was Pjanic, Pedri, and Trincao. Those are the 3 players that did come in the second half. And here's the very tricky thing about this whole thing. Koeman knew that he had to maintain the same amount of defensive work ethic from these players while also having these players create in that final third for FC Barcelona, because Barcelona needed to score. They were not just going to take this 1-0 loss. And so Koeman needed to bring in the right group of players, which he did, because we did see the results in the end. And the one player that I do want to point out was Pedri. The fact that Pedri continues to show his quality time and time again, it just shows you so much of what Pedri could be to FC Barcelona. Because if we look at the defensive duos that Pedri did do in that second half, Pedri immediately skyrocketed towards the top on having the most defensive duos with a total of 5. And then in second place, we did see Gerard Piqué with a total of 3, Sergio Roberto with a total of 3, Lionel Messi with a total of 2, and then De Jong with a total of 2. Those were the top 5 players with the most defensive duos. Keep in mind that 4 of those players played the whole match. One player, Pedri, played only the second half and yet again had the most defensive duos. Then if we were to move on to the key passes, and yet again we did see Pedri receive the most amount of key passes with a total of 5, Lionel Messi with a total of 2, Antoine Griezmann with a total of 1, and then so on. And the fact that Pedri was able to defend in that way and create in that way for only a total of 45 minutes, it really does show how effective Pedri could be under Ronald Koeman's Barcelona. This is a type of substitution you need to be making before the match even starts. Like, you have to have a player like Pedri either start or come in very early in the game. The other player that I do want to point out is Pjanic. Pjanic in those 45 minutes of the second half was the player that did find Messi the most in this game, with a total of 3 passes towards Lionel Messi. And that is a very big statement that Pjanic is making, because here's what we really do need to know right now. The only reason why Busquets never really gets dropped by any manager ever in the past 5 to 6 years is because every manager does know that the only player that's able to find Messi multiple times is Busquets. There is no greater connection in Barcelona than Busquets and Lionel Messi. Busquets was born to find Lionel Messi in that final third area. And the fact that Pjanic was able to find Messi within those 45 minutes more than any other player, that is basically Pjanic taking the job away from Sergio Busquets. And again, that is a massive statement, because if a player does take away the role of Busquets, which is to find Lionel Messi in that final third, there is no other reason to keep Busquets on the field, because that is actually the only thing Busquets can provide on the field. When it comes to the defensive work, Busquets cannot do that, like we have discussed earlier. And so if we do have a player who can do what Busquets has been doing in the past 5 to 6 years, this is going to be another reason why Busquets' role does need to be dropped. And so in result, with these substitutions, eventually we did see Antoine Griezmann get his goal. It was great. It was a great thing to see that Pedri and Pjanic were capable enough to do the defensive work and also act as creators. It allowed Antoine Griezmann to push forward and eventually get his goal. Hopefully this does bring his confidence back up. I do want to see Antoine Griezmann flourish with FC Barcelona in this season. We know the players that do need to be in place in order for Griezmann to perform in this way now that we have studied them very well. Koeman needs to have an idea at least on knowing who should be placed on the field right next to Antoine Griezmann. The other thing that we also have seen is that we have had all of the possession within those last 20 to 25 minutes. The fact that we had Pjanic, Trincao and Pedri come into the field and see Barcelona just become much more dominant over Alaves, it was a great thing to see. Barcelona also became way more attack focused, again because Pjanic was very progressive, Pedri was doing the defensive work, getting the ball back as soon as possible, and again participating in the attack by distributing those key passes on the field. But obviously in the end it was too late, and that is why Barcelona did tie against Alaves 1-1. There are so many lessons we do need to learn from this, and I know that Ronald Koeman will learn going forward, and that is that Pedri does need to see more minutes. Pjanic has to be over Busquets. Busquets' role does need to be dropped. These are the type of changes that not only do you have to make through the game, but before the game even starts. Make these changes in the lineup. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are new here, welcome to the channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys in the next video.